if I think about how organisations have started, like large incumbent organisations which have been around for many, many decades, is that in the early years, I'm sure they were very close to the customer. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to um, um, kind of bootstrap their way into existence. But as they found success, perhaps there's a degree of separation of why they exist and the value they create, and a separation from that to how do we actually do it. And there seems to be more and more focus on the how but not the why. And we create emergent processes and practices and ways of working and how to run a marketing campaign. We focus on the how and less on the why, and that becomes separate. And I guess there's opportunities of agile marketing to actually bring those two things together again. Would is this resonating with you, perhaps?
Yeah, no, I think again, there's lots of ideas in what you're saying there. So I think it's easier for small companies that when in the startups, they know they have to go out and talk to people. They know that they need to test their product or their service with real people and find out
Mm.
what the response is. And when they're sort of four people setting up an organization, that's very much easier than when they've found success, they've got to maturity, and then you're looking at functional expertise. You've got individuals that are looking out for their careers, wanting to develop. Now, marketers are great perfectionists. That's such a generalization. But in general, we want to get things right. We're very committed. We're passionate about what we do, and we work hard. We really do. You know, generalizations for sure. But as a profession, marketers work very, very hard.
Indeed.
There's a risk that we end up head down, deadline driven, and wanting it to be as good as it could possibly be. And the agile concept of just enough
Mm.
and looking at the value that's actually created for the organization right at this moment is really valuable and important for marketers to pull them away from that and sort of ask that question, well, hang on, what could we get out to the customer right now to learn something with what we've got? What's the
Mm.
value that could be delivered? And what does the organization need from us right at this moment rather than in 6 months' time?
Mm.
So that we begin to let go of some of the things that may suck up resource. PowerPoint presentations, one of my pet hates. I heard a lovely expression, I'm afraid I can't remember from whom the other day. Minimum viable PowerPoint. How good is that?
I love
In
that.
my world, better not to have it at all, but if you have to have it, minimum viable PowerPoint
I
is the
love
way
that.
to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, you know, marketers can spend a lot of time producing these fantastic presentations. We're good at this stuff and we care how it looks. So we can spend a lot of time making sure that you've got visuals on that slide, that the text isn't too close together, that the fonts are right and nothing's overlapping. But ultimately, if that's an internal presentation, how can you strip back what's needed for that so that you've got more of your time and your expertise to deliver value to the customer? How can we make documentation less?
Okay,
You know,
that's
as
interesting.
another really important agile principle, don't spend the time on the documentation. Have just enough to make sure that you understand the purpose of the campaign, the audience, and what you want to see from it.
Hmm.
Be clear about purpose and goals, and make sure that every bit of effort you expend is delivering something of value.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And I think this ties back into culture as well because we were speaking earlier around the culture piece of actually bringing together different departments, sales, marketing, product development. But there's also another angle where culture is really important, and that is that notion of minimal viable something, minimal viable PowerPoint, minimal viable documentation. And I picked up on something you mentioned of like internal documentation. What is a minimum that we can do to be able to like move on to the next stage without being kind of encumbered by like a pixel perfect PowerPoint presentation that we've got to present to another steering committee?